everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some steak quesadillas, a Southwest salad, and some strawberry streusel sourdough discard muffins. That was kind of a mouthful. So let's start by getting our sweet potatoes kind of peeled, chopped up, in the oven cooking because they're going to be the thing that takes the longest. And we're going to kind of do a Southwest kind of flavoring on them because these are going to go into our salad. And I had a couple of these sweet potatoes that are ready to go. I always feel like they hide out in my refrigerator in the back and then I forget I have them. So we're just going to do a kind of a quick peel on these. Get off this little fibrous outside. And then we'll cube it up, and then we're going to kind of season it with some kind of taco seasonings, a little Southwest flair. Let's get a little, looks like there's a bruise. But these, I feel like, you know, most people don't think about adding like a sweet potato or a potato into a salad, but it can add a nice extra kind of texture and flavor, especially sweet potatoes. I feel like they can be really popping in salads and add good fiber and all that jazz. Okay, we're going to cube them up small because remember, they are going to be kind of like a topping on our salad, and they kind of fit well with our Southwest theme. Let's get a little bit of that part off. And here we go. So I'm going to just nice kind of smaller cubes so they cook up fast, get a little crisp, but still tender and soft on the inside. And we'll do them nice and savory because I love my sweet potato savory. And sometimes, you know, I feel like if you've ever had, you know, think about Cajun sweet potato fries, think about along those flavors and just have them like seasoned similar to that, but in a salad, I think they'll be delicious. Especially if you wanted to have like a vegetarian option. I feel like that kind of gives you a nice meaty base for it. Let's pop these on our baking sheet. And then we're going to coat them with some olive oil and some spices, and then we'll spread them out. So I'm going to give it about a tablespoon or so of olive oil. And then we're going to use a little bit of onion powder. That will also make them nice and savory. I'm going to shake on about a teaspoon. A little bit of Southwest Chipotle seasoning from Mrs. Dash's. Now this has a little bit of a kick to it, so a little can go a long way. Nice little shake, probably half a teaspoon if even. A little bit of garlic salt. And then half a teaspoon of garlic salt and about a half a teaspoon of just whatever taco seasoning you want. I get mine in bulk at Costco. And now we're just going to kind of coat these up. There we go. And make sure you've got them really coated. You don't want to leave any of your sweet potatoes uncovered by that oil or they'll dry out some. So just make sure you get them nice and coated. And then we'll spread them out. I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse. And then we're going to pop these in the oven at 400. Okay. So we'll pop these in there. We're going to have them cook at 400 because our muffins are going to cook at 400. So these will be kind of perfect. And looks like I forgot my water in there from yesterday when we did our bread. Let me pull that out. It'll be nice and steamy. It will be a steam thing. Although this oven actually has a steam feature, which does make really delicious soft veggies.
Your question, how was the salmon?
Salmon was delicious last night. My oldest daughter was very, very thankful, excited because she's been asking for that Alaskan, we call it our Alaskan cruise salmon, forever. So she was quite happy with it. Okay, let me put my discard right here. So we are making kind of like a strawberry streusel muffin. So we're going to start by cutting up our strawberries, and then we're going to toss them with a little bit of sugar and cornstarch. That's because strawberries are going to sweat it out. And if you just put them straight into your muffin, then you can get some soggy parts of your muffin. So we're going to toss them with that cornstarch and a little bit of sugar, which is going to prevent them from getting too runny in our muffins. And I'm aiming for about 1.5 cups of strawberries. You don't want to go overboard with the strawberries because, again, they do sweat out a lot of liquid. And I'm just going to do kind of simple little chops on them because I want them, not too big, because, again, you make them really big, they'll have a soggy spot.
Angel made your zucchini muffins today.
Oh, I hope you like them because they are definitely, I feel like most people have never had zucchini muffins before, but they are so good.
You said they were very good.
Oh, excellent. And they're so moist. I feel like zucchini muffins, just kind of like how pumpkin and banana bread is such a moist muffin, they're so good. And right now, people probably have, if they garden, probably have their garden full of zucchini right now because maybe a little bit later. Depends. Growing seasons happen everywhere. That always gets me. They're like, I'm always like, what zone am I in again? Because you have to plant based on what your like agricultural zone is. And I don't have the greenest of thumbs. I always aspire to be a gardener, but I don't do the watering part, which is kind of crucial, especially if you live in Tennessee.
You're no San Juan.
You're right. Okay, so I've got our strawberries here. Just going to do a little random chop over them. I'm going to put them in my little bowl here. We'll sprinkle just a little bit of sugar and cornstarch. And that way we'll get some of that excess juice out so they don't make our muffins soggy. Grab my sugar. And you just need to sprinkle a little bit of sugar, like I'm going to say maybe, I'm trying to get not super chunky one, about like 2 teaspoons or so, just a little shake. It's actually, not even 2 teaspoons of sugar, just a little bit, because that helps it kind of juice out a little bit faster. And then we'll sprinkle about 1 teaspoon or so, nice dusting over it of cornstarch. And we'll make what they call a slurry. So we have our dusting there, but that's just going to prevent it from all that excess liquid from like bleeding out into our muffins. So we'll give this a nice little stir and kind of coat them up with it. There we go. Perfect. Now we'll leave those towards the end. Now we're going to make our base for our muffins. We're going to start with 1/2 cup of our sourdough discard. Let me grab a spoon to stir this up. There we go. And I was going to feed it because I'm going to be making a couple loaves this week. So we're going to use 1/2 cup. And we're going to put it in here. We're going to start with all of our wet ingredients first because it just makes it easier to mix all of it. And then you don't have to do the really tedious step of like sifting flour and baking soda and baking powder together. It's such a boring step. Okay, so we've got 1/2 teaspoon or 1/2 cup of our sourdough discard. And now we're going to add in some sour cream. This is what makes them so moist. Pop it off. And we're going to add in 3/4 cup of sour cream. Now, you could measure this out perfectly. I just kind of eyeball it. That's about 3/4. And I will say this one, pretty forgiving if you go a little over, a little under. We're going to mix these two together to start with, just because sometimes the sour cream can get a little lumpy. So I always like to make sure kind of get it mushed out. Here we go. Now it's kind of nice and smooth. We're going to add in a cup of melted butter. Not a cup, a half a cup of melted butter, a stick of melted butter. So a stick of melted butter. And then we're going to add in a fourth a cup of cream. And I use heavy cream on this, but you could always use, I can't see in that one. The butter's got everywhere. But you could always use half and half. But I wouldn't, if you were going to do milk, you want to cut down a little bit of a liquid because it's a bit too runny. So a fourth a cup of cream. And then we're going to add in a tablespoon of vanilla extract. That's going to give this a nice kind of vanilla cake almost base for our muffin. And then we'll add in our eggs. Oh, whew. I almost thought my husband stole my egg and then it was going to come flying at me. So we've got 1 egg and 2 eggs. Here we go. So we're going to get all of our liquid ingredients mixed together now. And once these are mixed together, then we'll add in our baking powder, our baking soda, our sugar, and our salt. And then last, we'll add in our flour, and then we'll fold in our strawberries. And then we'll make our streusel topping. So pretty simple, pretty easy. But this sour cream and sourdough discard base just gives you just the softest, most delicious muffins. Here we go. So we've got those all mixed up.
Yo has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? Oh, I mentioned something, but now I can't remember what I was thinking. So I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm still ruminating on the idea, thinking about it. I have lots of groceries, but again, no idea. We're going to add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So we got 1, 2, and then a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And then a teaspoon of salt. Here we go. And then I'm going to mix this up real nice before I add in my sugar, because you want to make sure that your baking powder and your baking soda really get mixed around everywhere so that you have an even rise and you don't have any parts that don't have it. And this essentially, if you mix it into your wet ingredients, essentially takes out the need for sifting, which I am all for. Okay. We're going to add in our sugar. We are going to add in a cup of sugar. And we'll mix that in, and then we'll add in our flour. And remember, when we add in our flour, this is a butter base. We are going to just mix it until it's combined. We don't want to over mix it, otherwise you'll get a stiff muffin instead of a really light and fluffy muffin. That's why we kind of do all this mixing first, and then we add that flour in instead of dumping all of our ingredients together. It's just going to give you, it takes, a minute or 2 longer, but it gives you a much better end product. Okay, now we're going to add in our 2 cups of flour. And I'm using all-purpose flour. So we've got 1 and 2. And we'll mix it up. And this will be our nice base for it. And once we get to where we have almost all of that flour mixed in, I'm going to start folding in the strawberries. But I always use just a spatula for this, or a spoon. I never use a hand mixer because hand mixers it's really easy to over mix something because it just goes so fast that you can then you kind of get a stiffer end product. And if you're doing all the work, just do a little bit more effort to have it right. So here we've just about got it all mixed in. I'm just gonna do one scoop around. And then we're gonna fold in our strawberries here. Now, you see how we have a lot of juice right there? I'm going to be really careful not to pick up any of that juice when I put it in here because it will make it more wet. And again, we don't want to have it super wet because you want a nice kind of thicker base. I feel like that's what happens is a lot of people, when they do try to do strawberries in it, it can get pretty soggy. So I always do my little cornstarch trick, especially for that baking, and then just making sure you're not just putting them in right away. There we go. Because that's probably what's in there is probably like a tablespoon of liquid. And now we're going to fold these guys in. Just going to lift and kind of scoop under and fold it over. Essentially just kind of putting the batter on top of each other. And we'll just do it a couple of times until it's all mixed up. There we go. Perfect. That should be just enough folding for our muffins. And then we're going to scoop our batter out, and then we'll make our streusel. We're going to do like a light streusel, like a blonde streusel. That way it has, kind of goes well with the strawberries versus a richer one. So we'll put our little muffin tins out. There we go. And then I like to use a spoon to scoop it in. So I'm just going to use my strawberry spoon because I just think it is a little bit easier than using that big spatula. And we're going to fill these bad boys up all the way to the top. And then we'll come back over and we'll add a little bit more because this is going to give you that nice big dome on top of your muffin. And that's what we want. And so the batter, with it being a butter base, is a thick one, so it doesn't just naturally fall down into your cupcake, little wrapper. So putting it up high is not going to just like bake over and run off. It will, as that butter melts again, it will fall back down into it and give you, those bakery style muffins. Here we go. I'm trying to make sure I get and now we're going to go back over and we'll add kind of another spoonful to each one. There we go. And this is also why if you add too many strawberries in it, you won't be able to like kind of fit it all in here. Now you could make them a little bit smaller and probably stretch this batch to maybe an extra 6 if you made them, just kept them at that 3/4 of the way, but then you're not going to get that delicious kind of big dome.
You have a question? Do you post your recipes?
We do occasionally give freebie recipes to everybody. We always post the video on the link on our page, so you can always rewatch the video to recreate any of it. And then we do recipe cards for our members. So everybody has access to the videos, but our recipe cards we send out every week for our members.
And in the videos, you do go over
yes.
every step.
I go over every step in the video, so you can definitely create any of these recipes at home just by watching and cooking along with us again. That's why I make sure I say every recipe, what we cook it at. Like these will be cooked at 400, and for how long. Okay, so we've got our muffins here. Now we're going to make our streusel that will go right on top here. And I'm actually going to steal a little bit off of this one to go to that one. Make it a little bit more even. So I have about 2 tablespoons of melted butter in here. And for a blonde streusel, we are just going to be using granulated sugar and flour. For a richer streusel, you can use brown sugar, but we're keeping it simple. I'm going to put in about a 1/4 cup of sugar. We'll mix it up. I might use a little bit more. I just want to see how it looks. So we're going to mix it. Yeah, 1/4 cup of sugar. That's all we need with 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And you're going to kind of mix it together first until it has just, you kind of created a sugary paste. And then we're going to add in a little bit of flour. It's going to be about 1/4 cup of flour too. But again, I always look at it until I have the right crumb. So I'm going to add my flour in. We'll start with our 1/4 cup. And then we're going to kind of mix it until we have this nice crumb forming. And then we'll sprinkle this over the top of our muffins. Let's see, I might add in just a little bit more. Maybe like a tablespoon or so more, because I want it to be a little bit more dry. There we go. Because if you have it too wet, then it will stay like a thick kind of base. Sprinkle. And you want it nice and crumbly. There we go. So I essentially want my streusel to look just like this. And now this is what's going to give you that just little extra delicious part of our muffins. We're going to just put this over the top of each one of these. Nice little, I'm going to just kind of pat it in just a little bit, but don't press it in too far, but just enough to kind of keep it to stick. There we go. Now, if you wanted to cook these muffins without the streusel, I would just brush them with cream and sprinkle a little bit of sugar over the top. And then they would bake at 400 for 18 minutes. Because we're doing the streusel on it, they're going to just take a smidge longer. So we're going to bake them at 400 for 20 minutes. Because that streusel kind of weighs down. It takes a little bit longer for it to cook. There we go. But this just gives you that, just that, who doesn't love streusel? I mean, it's so good. Okay. Pat them all in just a little bit. And then we're going to pop these. I'm going to wash my hands. We'll pop these in the oven for 20 minutes. And the reason, again, if you were going to do no streusel on it, it would be 18 minutes, brush with cream and sugar. But with the streusel, just a teeny bit longer. So we're going to put those right up on that top rack too at 400 degrees. And then I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes. Okay, perfect. Making sure, double checking my oven every single time ever since we did. Okay, let's start working on our quesadillas in our kind of Southwest salad. We have that sweet potatoes that we saw in there. They're roasting up with our kind of Southwest seasonings on it. Let's get our little bit of flank steak here. It's about 3/4 of a pound. We're just going to marinate it up with some spices, and then we'll start kind of cooking it off. That way it can sit before we're ready to cut it up. So we're going to use a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And that's just going to help make it nice and juicy. Teeny bit of liquid smoke to give it just a nice little smoky flavor. Just a little bit, like 1/2 teaspoon, goes a long way. And then we're going to use our onion powder, a nice kind of coating over the top, a little bit of our Southwest spices, a little bit of our taco seasoning here. Pretty much all the same stuff on our sweet potatoes, except we're added liquid smoke and Worcestershire. And then a little bit of garlic salt. And then we're going to flip this over, and we're going to do the exact same on the other side so that it has all that extra flavor. And this is kind of like a quick marinade with it. Let me wash my hands. Okay. So again, we're going to go over with a little bit of Worcestershire, a teeny tiny amount. And I always pour it in my cap because it's very easy to go too much, and it has a strong flavor, but it adds just that extra level of deliciousness. Got some onion powder, our Southwest mix by Mrs. Dash's, our taco seasoning, and a little bit of garlic salt. There we go. And we're just gonna let that sit for a second. Once our oil has heated up, we're gonna put that in there to cook on both sides, and then we can let it sit before we cook it or cut it up. Because with flank steak, you wanna cook it on high heat on both sides for not very long, but then you let it sit and continue to cook on there. That way it remains nice and tender and juicy. While we're waiting for that, I'm gonna start prepping our vegetables for all of our other parts of it.
Yeah, 2 questions. That feels like a lot of seasoning for that amount of meat.
It seems like a lot of seasoning for it, but part of it will cook off into the pan and it's going to give you a big bite. And this is going to go inside a quesadilla. So it's going to season everything else in there. So I always say over season, because this isn't marinating for a long time. This is a short one. And you'll have really good things because you can't season it more later.
And then the second question is this a makeup for salmon?
You know, I stopped doing makeup meals for my husband. He just needs to, love salmon the way the rest of us do. He just has to learn.
I ate it last night.
He did. He ate it. He ate it all. And he always talks about how much he likes it afterwards. But apparently he has a short-term memory and forgets. And every single time, salmon. If it was me, we'd have salmon like 3 times a week because I absolutely love it. Okay, we're going to kind of do big, kind of chunky on our peppers because I'm going to saute these up. These are actually not going to go on our quesadillas. They're going to go on our salad. So we're going to saute them for our salad because they'll add just some great flavor when they're done. Instead of in the quesadilla. That way my kids don't grumble about me putting more vegetables in it. Only like 2 of Evie loves to eat peppers raw or kind of like by themselves. But if they were in her quesadilla, she would pick them out. In the salad, she'll eat a couple of them. But Torrin, he, and of course my parents are the only ones who will truly eat peppers. And they're just so good. And these are sweet peppers. They're not spicy. Again, I am like such a baby with spice, so we don't handle that here very well. Let's see. I'm waiting for my thing to heat up a little bit more. So we'll saute these off after we've got there. And then, let's see, we can start prepping up our salad. Let's make our guacamole first, actually. Because I love to dip quesadillas in guacamole. I just think it's the way they were meant to be eaten as a vessel to the guacamole. So we're going to have guacamole for it. We also will have some nice chips to go with it. And then I'll make my salad up. But let's get the guacamole going. Good. One of these avocados, this one, I dropped. So I'm wondering how bruised it's going to be. I'm hoping because I'm using it within a day that it won't be too bad. You can see it right where I dropped it. It's always the saddest thing. I remember like I bought a bag of like avocados and the bagger like person dropped it. And I was like, oh no, they're all ruined. Because you drop them, they're bad. You look at them for too long, they're bad. They're very, 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 very temperamental. I need a fork, and then we're going to put our flank steak in. And we're going to let it cook up. I can tell it's nice and hot. Now, with the flank steak, we're going to cook it on high heat on both things. So I'm not really going to turn it down. Here we go. A nice high heat, and it will sizzle up. Do not overcook your flank steak, or it will not be very good. It is one of those things that the meat kind of like goes rock hard if you overcook it. So got to keep it nice and tender. So I'll sear it for about 1.5 minutes on each side in this pan, and then we just let it sit and cool until we're ready to start making our quesadillas. So let's get my guacamole. So for my guacamole, super simple, but delicious. All I do is I keep it, and this is a very kid-friendly, I guess, guacamole is avocados, fresh lime juice, and garlic salt. All you need. And it makes the best guacamole. And the beauty is if you have extra, it can be used as avocado toast the next day, as long as you squirt a little lime juice over the top. So, and I'm also hoping that Teddy will eat this because it'll be nice and soft. This is why we've made so many muffins, because the last week and a half, that is like the only thing Teddy has really eaten. He did eat the peanut butter bars yesterday, and he ate some of the rice. He was too scared to try the salmon because he was like, "It's crunchy," and I'm like, "It's not crunchy, I promise."
I got him to eat Swedish fish this morning.
Oh, well, apparently my husband got him to eat Swedish fish, which is so full of nutrition. But you know what? At this point, I don't care. If he wanted to sit down and eat a whole bag of candy, I would let him, just to get him to eat, because he has not been eating. That I didn't realize how avoidant of eating and drinking they would be after having their tonsils out. But he, every time he eats, he always complains that his ears hurt. So I just feel bad for the guy. I'm hoping everything will start to come better. Now I'm using my fork here to mash up my avocados. I find it just works really well. It works better than a spoon because you leave a bit of texture left in the avocados, because I don't like it super smooth, but you get rid of all the big lumps. And I think it makes it just a little bit more fluffy without being whipped smooth. There we go. I mean, I feel like 50% of guacamole is making sure your avocados are right, because you buy them from the store, they're rock hard. And then I let them sit on the counter for about like a day or so. And then once they get kind of soft to touch, and then I pop them in the fridge. We flipped over our flank steak. We're going to let it kind of cook up nice and hot. I want a nice hot sear on it. We'll let it cook for about a minute and a half on that side, and then we're going to remove it and let it rest before we chop it up. Okay, we've got our avocado here. We're going to use the juice from one whole lime. And this is twofold. It gives you that citrus flavor that you need, and it prevents the avocados from going brown. And you've got to use fresh lime juice. You can't use like that lime juice in a bottle. And these are really juicy. Sometimes you get limes that are not very juicy. I always try to find the limes with a thinner skin. They're the ones that are softer. Those are typically more juicy. Okay, let me wash my hands because they're very limey. And we're going to whip this up. And this will be our avocado, our guacamole that we can dip our steak quesadillas in. We'll make our Southwest salad in just a second here. We have our strawberry streusel muffins and our sweet potatoes baking in the oven right now. We're going to put a nice sprinkling of garlic salt over the top. And then you're just going to use your fork to mix all of this together. And I will say after about 2 minutes, once that like lime juice has started to dissolve the garlic salt, it'll be perfect for eating and is delicious. Okay, let's remove I'll turn this down, our flank steak. I'm gonna let it sit, and we're gonna let it sit for a couple of minutes before we put it in our, we cut it up. But before we do that, we have all these nice flavors. I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil in here because we're gonna just kind of cook our peppers and I'm using red onions, but we're going to do a flash cooking on them. So we're not doing a full cook on it, but it just gives them a little bit of flavor, takes away some of their bitterness, but still keeps that crunch that you want with your salad.
Angel noticed you cracked open a new bottle of garlic salt.
Yes, I did. I got there. I said, now I don't have a backup anymore. I just have a small little backup. So I've got to restock.
Do you have a question? Do you always need to leave it to rest?
Yes. If you kind of cut it right away, it will instantly set out all their juices. And then the way I like to cook it is you just put it like seared off on both sides. And so it will still be kind of reddish in the middle, But then after sitting for about 5 minutes, it will be that perfect like pink medium rare because it continues to cook when you put it off. That's why you need to let it, just with most meat, you've got to let it sit. So we're doing this really fast kind of sear on there. We have all those spices in there from our steak. So those will kind of coat these up and give them a nice kind of Southwest flavor to it. But we're just going to do a really fast cook on these. And then they'll be ready for our salad. But we're not going to cook them till they're tender, but we want them kind of a nice fast cook. Once those there, we're going to throw in, we have some corn we'll throw in there once it's done too, because it's toasted up a little bit. Okay, let's get our romaine lettuce here. Got a big head of it. There's quite the head of lettuce here. I'm going to give it a quick rinse. Shake it off. Shake it. Needed my own little soundtrack over there, guys. Showing you some fancy skills today. Okay, I'm going to throw in my corn now that we've kind of got a nice little char going on it. And again, we want to cook it fast and high so we get that smoky char on it that will really, play out in the salad. There we go. Perfect. Okay, let's get a shake. I'm going to actually turn the heat off so it can't cook anymore. Now we're going to take our lettuce here. So it's funny, I was like, Lena, my oldest daughter, she was, telling me, she goes, nobody makes salads the way I like, which is all dark leafy green lettuce. And then she was explaining her dream salad. So dark leafy green lettuce, lots and lots of ranch dressing, croutons in every bite, chicken, and Parmesan cheese. And I said, well, that's kind of the most ridiculous salad. That sounds like a ranch with some veggies in it. And she goes, well, nobody has the dark leafy green lettuce. So I purposely picked out my romaine to be the darkest and not the lightest, which will make my girls happy. But my boys like the other end where it is more crunchy. I like it always. I'm not a difficult person. Okay, I'm going to go steal our sweet potatoes out of the oven because they are, well, let's see. Yeah, I'm going to get them out now because they're going to be just about ready and I don't want them to overcook. And then we can cut our meat up and start making our quesadillas. Look at our beautiful muffins. They've got about 5 minutes left, but they are doing awesome. Here are our sweet potatoes. Nice and hot, and they're soft but have this nice crispy edge on it. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to put my lettuce in my bowl so we can start assembling our quesadillas here in just a second. There we go. So we've got our nice leafy romaine lettuce. We're not going to add our veggies in yet because you want them to cool for just a second. But I'm going to actually take my flank steak over here because we're going to be assembling our quesadillas and I'll be cooking them on my skillet. But kind of left a mess over here. As my husband will tell you, I'm a little bit of a messy cooker. And I use a lot of dishes. And he always tells me that because he washes the dishes. So he's like, you use this many dishes. And I'm like, And did you enjoy it?
I don't sound like that.
It's how you sound in my head. Okay. As I will say, for my sister and my brother-in-law is the chef. And I always tell my husband, I'm like, you think I use a lot of dishes? Well, you should see him. Okay, Perfect. I've got a nice kind of firm touch. We're going to chop this guy up into nice tiny bite-sized pieces. But you see we've got this perfect still little pink inside. That's what you do. You want to do a quick sear on both sides to keep it nice and juicy. And then we'll chop it up. But that's the whole point. You've got to let it rest, because if you try to cut into it right away on those quick sears, you're going to have more of a bright red color. And for our quesadillas, I'm doing small cube-like pieces, because if you do anything bigger, what will happen is you'll bite into your quesadilla and then you'll take out like a whole strip of meat. So you got to kind of, I will say that's one thing, you know, Chipotle has done right, is they make the meat small for the quesadillas, which makes it easier to eat. Now, they could double the meat portion and cut the prices in half, then they would be winning in my heart. Okay, let's get these quesadillas going. So I'm going to use my hex-clad griddle pan here, because this thing is great for quesadillas. And we'll start now with the quesadilla. I feel like this is a basic food, like the basic quesadilla most people know how to make. Just do a little bit of butter, and a little bit of butter goes a long way, but you need some. And I think I can do 2 on this pan at a time. Yes, perfect. So I've got it heating up, and then we'll turn it down. Don't keep it on a high heat the whole time, or you'll burn your quesadilla before your cheese gets melted. But this always takes a hot minute to heat up before it's ready to use. Now we're going to put a nice smattering of cheese here, a nice little layer, because we're going to do cheese on top. We put our meat in the middle and put our cheese on top. Now, if you want to, you could totally throw in the sauteed veggies that we put in there. It's great. But my children are difficult sometimes. My husband is difficult sometimes. So we're just using the delicious meat in here. And we're going to put it in, just a few bites on each one. This is where you can have a smaller cut of meat. This was only like 3/4 of a pound, but it can spread out to make a lot more of a meal by having it with, you know, cheese and other components. Then we're going to do some cheese on top. That way we've got something that's holding the 2 tortillas together. And we'll now do our top one. You can also could just make this all into our Southwest salad. And just skip the quesadillas. Okay. Don't tell me that's already been 5 minutes. All right, I'm going to start turning this down just a little bit. Let's go grab our muffins out of the oven, and we'll be delicious. So these are our strawberry streusel muffins using fresh strawberries. We made a blonde streusel on it. But look at them. I'm just going to give them a nice tap on the top. Make sure I have a nice firm top. These, you know what? I think, you see how I've got a little bit of a jiggle? These need about a minute or so longer, 2 minutes. I always say, don't take them out until they're ready, or they'll sink in and be doughy. Always check. And that's what I said with the streusel topping. Sometimes it takes more. I had already added 2 minutes, but I guess I needed to add a little bit more. Okay, while we're waiting for our first round of quesadillas to kind of put up, let's kind of assemble our salad here. So we're going to put our sauteed veggies on. This is our corn and our quick sauteed peppers and onions. You want to do just kind of a nice over there. And we cook them in the nice flavors after we cooked our flank steak, so they'll just have an extra pop of flavor. These are done. Look at these, so nice. They are crispy, but look, they're still really, really soft. And these are going to be delicious. And these are kind of our Southwest roasted sweet potatoes. We'll sprinkle them all around on our salad as well. And these you could just make as a side too. So let's get these guys over here. And then you need some tomatoes. So we'll add in some tomatoes to our thing. I'm going to hand wash them. And then I like to just kind of cut them up so that they just kind of blend in better with the salad. So we'll add ours in here. But all these kind of vegetables just play really, really well. I think will go great with our quesadillas as a side. And then we'll serve it with, my kids are all going to pick ranch, which is delicious with it. But you could take ranch and mix it with guacamole, and you can make yourself an avocado ranch, which we did the other day, and it was so good. Okay.
You have a question? Do your parents eat lunch with you?
My parents do not. They both work, and so they do not eat lunch with us. A lot of times during the school year, it's just my husband and I, and then the little ones. Sometimes if they're not in nap, but a lot of times they're already in nap, so they actually. I always call it, they're like hobbits, because when they wake up, they're always like, "What do you have? I want it." Okay, so here, much better. I can see they've puffed up and are firm. These are our strawberry streusel muffins made with fresh strawberries. You can see all of those fresh strawberries popping through. We have a sourdough discard and sour cream base with vanilla in it. We made a blonde streusel, which is made using like granulated sugar, butter, and flour to give an extra little pop on it. But these are delicious. And the one key trick to making sure your strawberries don't make your muffin soggy is you toss them with a little bit of cornstarch and sugar before you pop them in there, and they'll be perfect. Okay, let's see. My first one always takes a little bit longer because my pan isn't hot yet. But once these are nice and hot, we'll flip them over and then be ready to delicious. I guess we can start kind of prepping our next one for our next round. And then once these are done, I'll plate it up for you guys. So, and you know what? You can use, you can make one big tortilla too. I always just use what I have here, which is typically just the little ones, because you can use the little ones for like so many different things. When I make a lot of times I make homemade tortillas, but I find homemade tortillas are better eaten fresh, like with your tacos or your fajitas or whatever you're making with. But they don't really work well for quesadillas. Here we go. So I got a little bit of butter on each side. And there we go. So I'm ready for my first kind of flip here. Perfect. So we've got this nice toasty crunch on it. And now these will cook so much faster with it that, it's just like with pancakes. Whenever you've cooked up pancakes and you have like the griddle and you're waiting and waiting forever, and then your second one, you think you have to wait as long, but you don't, because they cook like right through instantly. So let's get this flipped out so that when we get them, we'll be ready to cut them and plate them up. And see, it's already starting. Look at this. Look at that, all that ooey gooey, delicious, melty, and our bits of steak in there. And then you dip it in the guacamole. It'll be perfect. So I'm going to grab a plate. That way we can get ready for just plating up our lunch today. Get my guacamole. Also, what I like to do for our Southwest salad, it's kind of like a tortilla salad. If you take a little bit of your chips and you crunch it over, it gives you a little extra crunch to it, which is nice. We're doing the Sourdough chips. Never knew how to pronounce these until those commercials. So those commercials, they did something.
Sounds bad.
I know, but I don't read that. So these are really good, chips. If you've ever, they're really thin. You get those really thin restaurant ones. I love them. Okay, let's get these next ones popped on. And then we can kind of plate up here. Since I got my nice hot skillet. Got our little layer of ooey gooey cheese. And then we'll put our steak on. I know it'll be different next week. The kids go back to school. So I'll be like making half the amount of lunch food, or actually like a third of the amount of lunch food for us. That'll be nice. I always sit there and I'm like, how do we go through so much food in the summer? And it's funny because I make my kids' lunches during the school year, but yet we still go through more food in the summer. Okay, turn these down. We'll let them cook up. Let me grab my knife here and let's cut our quesadillas. So when you have your quesadillas, you've got to do it in the quads. Look at that beautiful steak in every bite, but not too crazy. Okay, so for lunch today, we are having our flank steak quesadillas. We marinated our steak in some Southwest spices and did a quick sear on a pan, let it rest and things. And then we're going to have our Southwest salad full of oven roasted sweet potatoes that we coated with, again, Southwest seasonings. Then we did a quick saute on red onions, peppers, and corn to give it a nice little extra pop of fun. Then we have our guacamole here, which we will be dipping in our quesadillas, which is made with just super simple lime juice, garlic salt, and avocados for the perfect kind of quick done. And then what I like to do with our salad is you're going to just crunch over a couple chips on top for an extra little bite. And then let's not forget our strawberry streusel muffins. And they are chock full of, look at just all of these delicious strawberries in there. How hot and delicious this is. So nice little dessert to go with our lunch today. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, all you have to do is go to that link, search for what we cooked for. So, flank steak quesadilla and strawberry muffins, and then you can watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our cooking gear in it. We have our, I've got my Hexclad pans in there, my cutting boards, my spatulas, everything I use in the kitchen I have in there in case you're interested in what gear we use. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.